Good evening. It's 6:30. This meeting will come to order. I'd like to welcome you to the Pasco Public Schools Board of Directors meeting this evening. Thank you for attending and for your interest in Pasco Public Schools. Understand that at times it may appear like the board is moving quickly on issues. We've had plenty of time as a board or as individuals to study the issues that we are taking action on, obtain additional information through our own independent research or additional information from district staff. I would remind you that this meeting is recorded for broadcast on PSC TV, Charter Cable Channel 191. You can also find this recording if you go to YouTube and search Pasco Schools. Finally, we're fortunate to have 3 student board representatives. They cannot legally vote on issues with us, but they're an important part of our team, the board's decision-making process in having student voice inform our decisions. So at this time, I would like to introduce Rowena Chess Elementary Principal Dora Noble, and she will introduce the students who are here to lead us in the flag salute.
Good evening, Board President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. It is my honor to present to you our champions from Rowena Chess Elementary and New Horizons High School. We understand that students who have a person who is a caring adult or mentor can have a positive impact on the mentor students as well as the mentor. Results from research completed by Dubois and Silverthorne in 2005 showed that being mentored is related to more positive social relationships, higher performance, and less problematic behavior. Our New Horizons High School students have had the opportunity to be championed by our very own school board members. They have learned the positive impact of having that caring adult and are now champions to our very own Rowena Chess Elementary students. This year, they will get together on 3 to 4 occasions to learn about leadership, mentorship, and building positive relationships. They have come here together today to share the program with you and lead you in the flag salute. So I'll call the students up so you can see who they are. Chris Suarez, Cruz Hernandez, Miranda Flores, Yanira Aquino, Jada Alvarado, Marco Cortez, Litzy Gonzalez, Jasmine Quintero, Jesus Rivera, and students from New Horizons High School are Maria Nunez, Javier Aispuro, Veronica Valencia, Adrian Valencia, Jesus Mendoza, Angel Rocha, and Absidy Williams.
Mrs. Noble, I believe you have a student in the front row here.
Oh, and Eric. Sorry, he was on here. Eric Alvarete. There are actually more students that aren't here this evening, but it's about 20 students from New Horizons and 20 students from Rowena Chess Elementary. Jada?
Please stand for the flag salute. I will pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They also have an envelope in hand that they would like to personally invite you to our Science and Showcase evening here that's coming up in May.
We'd like to acknowledge all the parents that are here for these students. So if you're a parent of a student, could you stand up so that we can recognize you for supporting these students in what they're doing? And that's a great program. We love, as a board and as a district, these partnerships and these mentorships that we have. We actually had a study session this afternoon on the superintendent annual work plan, and one of the things that may be a priority initiative and is a priority initiative is mentoring, whether it's for teachers or students. This falls into that category, though, and so thank you to the New Horizons students for being mentors, and thank you to our elementary school Rowena Chess students for taking part in the program also. And we also, before you students leave, whenever we have students come visit, we encourage them when they hit 11th and 12th grade to consider applying for the student board representative positions that these three students to my left have done, and continue your leadership improvement of those leadership skills and experiences, and we look forward to having you apply and maybe sit up here someday.
Thank you for these sweet handwritten letters. That was really kind, and did one of you guys design this? That's pretty cool too. You'll have to tell them they did a great job.
Thank you. There's a lot of power in the handwritten letter, and we appreciate the time that these students spent to write these letters to us. All right, next we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is roll call. I'll ask Ms. Smith to please call the roll.
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present?
Present.
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 All right, and before the students leave, hopefully I don't put them on the spot too much here, but I think, like I told you, there's a lot of power in these handwritten letters, and we really appreciate it. Each of the notes that we got have the name of a student, so I think if you don't mind, we could call them out just so you can stand up and we can put a name with a face and tell you thank you. But mine says Christopher wrote me a letter.
Are these from other students? Okay.
Are all of the students that wrote these here? Not necessarily tonight. Okay.
Well, tell them thank you.
Thank you. Tell them thank you. Tell your classmates thank you. All right. So next we'll move on to special recognition, agenda item number 4.
Good evening, Board President Lerman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. I initially will apologize for my voice and let you know that it sounds much worse than it feels. Next week, May 1st through the 5th, we'll be celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week in the Pasco School District. Activities and celebrations will be going on throughout the district to honor our teachers here in Pasco. Our teachers work daily to make a difference in the lives of our students, and their commitment to that ideal is truly impressive. Tonight, we have representatives from each school here with us to help celebrate. I'd like to ask them to please come forward when I call your name. We'll be sending you home tonight with bags full of brand new Proud of Pasco lanyards that we ask you to distribute to all of the teachers in your building. From Angelo Elementary, we have Marie Farron with us tonight. From Captain Gray STEM Elementary, Patty Ann Williams. From Chess Elementary, Judy Church. We'll ask you to please come to the front here. We're going to take a photo afterwards. From Curie STEM Elementary, Sarah Winokur. From Emerson Elementary, Elizabeth Almeida.
We're just holding our applause to the end. That's
From Franklin STEM Elementary, Chris Babinski. From Frost Elementary, Jennifer Melendrez. From Livingston Elementary, Debbie Kibling. From Longfellow Elementary, Julie Jenkins and Pam Johnston. From Markham Elementary, Colleen Roddy. From McClintock STEM Elementary, Michelle Granbois. From McGee Elementary, Brenda Wilson. From Robinson Elementary, Margarita Morphine. From Twain Elementary, Kathy Wright. From Whittier Elementary, Wisteria Edwards. From McLaughlin Middle School, Braden Smith. From Ochoa Middle School, Melissa Allred. From Stevens Middle School, Jennifer Spar. From Chiawana High School, Julie Stadelman. From Delta High School, Sarah Pack. You may have to scooch together. From New Horizons High School, Michelle Smith. From Pasco High School, Efren Mendoza. From our IPAL program, Jacqueline Gosh. And representing special programs, special education, and teachers on special assignment, Nettie Martinez.
I think you guys.
Tonight, we'd also like to honor a Pasco teacher who earned his national board certification this school year. This advanced teaching credential is achieved upon successful completion of a voluntary assessment program designed to recognize effective and accomplished teachers who meet high standards based on what teachers should know and be able to do. As part of the certification process, candidates complete 10 assessments that are reviewed by trained teachers in their certificate areas. The assessments include 4 portfolio entries that feature teaching practice and 6 constructed response exercises that assess content knowledge. Stevens Middle School teacher Armando Rodriguez recently earned this prestigious certification. Unfortunately, Mr. Rodriguez was not able to join us here tonight, but we do have a plaque for him that we will deliver to his classroom in celebration and acknowledgement of this great accomplishment. Pasco currently has 92 National Board Certified teachers. Thank you to all of our Pasco teachers for all that you do in the lives of our Pasco kids.
Thank you to the teachers who attended on behalf of their schools. Thank you to all of our teachers. We all appreciate them, as does the community and their students. And congratulations to our Mr. Rodriguez, our National Board Certified Teacher this year. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes of April 11th, 2017. Is it?
Yes. I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 11th, 2017. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. She can't, no.
No, Ms. Lace. Ms. Lace may not vote. That's all right. I threw a curveball at you and asked you for, well, why don't we do this instead? I will not ask Ms. Smith to call the roll. There's a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 11th, 2017. I'm sorry for throwing you a curveball. And those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Regular meeting minutes from April 11th, 2017 approved. All right, next we'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is the agenda review.
So there are no, oh no, is this how it's going to be? Okay. So
I take full responsibility.
It's all your fault. So there are no additions or changes to the board agenda. However, we are requesting an executive session under RCW 4231.10.1G for personnel.
Thank you. All right, be aware of changing conditions. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is audience comments. In just a few moments, I'll invite the audience up to address the board. Please address us. Let us know if you have questions or comments. If you would like additional response than what you received from the board in this meeting, please ensure that your contact information is left in the back left-hand corner, and we will follow up and have further dialect. So the microphone is open. All right, we will also have audience comments after agenda item number 9 and agenda items number 10, reports and discussion and action items. Seeing that we have no audience comments this evening, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is board communications. We'll start with Dr. Richardson.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate Chihuahua's Jermaine Barnes. He placed first in the 110 hurdles at the Pasco Invite, which is a very prestigious event, track meet that I wasn't able to see him, but I know Jermaine, and congratulations to him, and he has a good chance to place at state this year. I was able to attend the Willy Wonka performance from Stevens Middle School, and was very well attended and did a great job. My daughter even received a golden ticket and won a little prize basket, and some of our friends at the performance said, "Oh, you think they just gave it to you because you're a board member?" And I told them, "Well, no, this was middle school students. I don't think they know or care that I'm a board member," and so they didn't. Anyway, so she got a program that had the golden ticket, and it was pretty exciting for her. And so great job. And they do that a performance, I think, every year, and they're just always fantastic. So I hope that they can keep doing that.
I was able to attend the Goodwill luncheon that was had awards, and my grandson was awarded for the Attendance Matters that he participated in and donated time, and they had that for making that attendance matters and getting kids to attend school. And so he received the award. There was 5 community members that were nominated for that award. So it was great that, because that's a great thing for doing things for the kids in our community.
Excuse me. So I was able to attend the track meet. I was there for a little bit. This year, rather than being stuck in one spot, I kind of mingled around and saw some of the different activities, and it's always interesting, maybe is not the right word, but it's reassuring to see the number of people that come and volunteer. This is one of several big events that Pasco does. We do the Pasco Invite, the Best of the West tournament, and we host the state cross country too. And so these are just, I'm just impressed at the number of volunteers that come out from our community and serve at these events. As far as school goes, there's a couple of events I know coming up that I am going to be out of town. I was looking forward to going to these. We get the Hispanic Academic Achievers Program presentation, I believe, is this weekend, and I'm going to be in Utah with a grandchild. And then 2 weeks later is the AAAS, African American Academic something. No, anyway, AAAS. Another one that, and I'm going to be out of town again, so unfortunately I am not going to be able to attend those, but great events, and I would encourage you, if you're able to attend those, recognizing some of our students and their efforts. On the legislative front, things are not moving real fast over there. There's been a couple of things going on that does impact our district. We have been working with some of our legislators on legislation to be able to cite schools outside of the urban growth boundary. We thought we had cleared that hurdle, but it hit the governor's desk and there was something in there that he doesn't like. So we're not sure what's going to happen there. And another one that we're working on is the delinking of these high-stakes tests, these assessments, end-of-year assessments from graduation. And I think hopefully this year we can get some traction at least on the biology end-of-course exam. Others we're still going to have to work on, but that's in process. In fact, we've got one of the things on our agenda tonight to discuss those. But as far as funding goes, that is still up in the air, and that is probably going to be up in the air until the deadline, which is essentially June or July 1st, June 30th. So, but I will keep you posted as we have more information on those.
So I wish I would have been able to attend the Pasco invite, but I was playing in the Tri-City invite for tennis at the same time, so that's a little bit problematic. But the tournament went really well for that, and we had to pause a little bit due to lightning, so that was interesting. But everyone's matches went through, and Chihuahua did pretty well, so it was definitely a fun tournament. And Chihuahua had every 15 minutes only like a couple of weeks ago, and it was a really great experience to go to. I didn't end up being one of the people who were to die in the event, but it was really great experience to go and watch and see, and really impactful, and it really got the point across to a lot of people. So I definitely think it was something really worth attending and really well put on. And the last thing is there was a choir festival this last Friday and Saturday. The Friday was chamber choir and for choral music there, and then the Saturday was the jazz choir, and it went really well. McLaughlin did fantastic. They won for both in the choral and in the jazz for middle school, so that was really impressive. And Chihuahua did pretty good, and on the Saturday, the jazz choir day, the power went out, so we performed in the dark. So that was interesting. People got out their phones, little flashlights. So it was definitely a different sort of performance, but definitely memorable. So it was a great festival overall, and I really enjoyed it.
Hello. Well, we got to do the every 15-minute program in our school, and I was able to be a participant for it. And I feel like it actually worked. I was hearing a lot of like crying and stuff, so I mean, I'm pretty sure that shows an effect. And I was able to meet the kids that I'm being champion for, and it's an honor to be there for them and like being accepted to do that. And I'm always gonna try to do my best to be a good role model. And also, I have a poem I'd like to read for the teacher appreciation that I wrote. So here it goes. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you've put into me and every student around you. Thank you for caring so much about me and my education at times when it seemed like I didn't even care. Thanks to every teacher and staff. Thanks to my 5th grade teacher that told us to tuck in our shirts every morning before class. And even though as a kid I never thought I would say this, but thank you for that as well. Thanks to the teachers that have helped us learn lessons that mean much in school and in our lives. So one more time, thank you to all teachers. You make Pasco proud. Thank you.
I don't know how I'm going to follow after that. But definitely thank you to all the teachers. I know Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up fairly soon, so you can never say too many thank yous, but definitely thank you. And I want to say thank you to Rihanna, who was the student who wrote my letter, and it's really nice to receive a handwritten letter. I can't remember the last time I received one, and so it's definitely a different experience to read one because, I mean, I think I'm used to reading print, so it's so easy to copy and paste an invitation or a thank you, but it shows so much more thought are put into it. So thank you to that, to Rihanna, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Thanks.
Well, it was so exciting to hear that Pasco, at present at least, or a week ago, was the district that had the most kids in the chess tournament. Is that correct? The state chess tournament. What an incredible thing for this district to get behind, the principals that are behind that, the teachers that support that. Just so appreciate. There's so many things that chess can do for our kids with their brain and with their confidence level and with skills and mathematical skills, that all of the things that chess helps. And to find out that, that Pasco High School Pasco School District, because most of these are elementary school kids, have the most, had the most representatives in any other district. That's pretty incredible. So that was really fun to learn. And we love learning things like that. So if anybody ever wants to shoot us an email, those are really fun emails to get. And Ben, I didn't get to go to the Pasco Invite. We have a store in Othello that we opened last weekend, and life was a little bit busy. And between that and getting around to my kids' sports, I did get to go to another track meet because I have a child in track, a child in tennis, and various other activities. So we've been busy with spring sports and enjoying being at the schools lots with their activities. And it's fun to see usually the teachers that are great supporters of our kids. I too want to thank the teachers. I have a great love and appreciation for teachers. They've had a huge impact on my life, and I have watched how they've had a huge impact on my children's life. I once took a class at college, obviously an elective, because it was called Family History, and we learned about genealogy, but the teacher talked about how important it was to have current histories. And one of the things he felt was important was to not acknowledge those in your life that have made a difference. And every year he would have the students list who was most important in their life, who were their role models. And he said by far the majority were parents that a child would choose. But he said second to parents came teachers. And he said if you want to make a difference in the life of another person, besides being a parent, the best thing that you can do is to teach, and I firmly believe that. So I want to thank you for the impact that you have on this rising generation and the future of our community and our country and our world. So thank you.
I too had a good experience at the Pasco Invite. Thank you to all the community volunteers and also to the district staff that helped that event go off with very few hitches each year. My kids enjoyed attending with me again, and I think a couple, I guess 4 Mark Twain kindergarten teachers. I stopped by last Friday without warning really, and stopped by one bilingual classroom and 3 other classrooms. And I always thank teachers for allowing the board to stop by unannounced and see the great things that you are doing in your classrooms. I'd also thank Mr. Mendoza for reading that poem to the teachers. Just seeing you students give thanks like that, and also all the achievements that not just you 3 here, but all the students in the district achieve, I think is an appreciation that is given to these teachers every day, and their greatest gift that you students give them is the achievements and the teachers getting to see you guys succeed. So thank you for reading that, and then thanks to all the students in the district who are doing great things and validating the hard work that all of our teachers are doing.
I just wanted to quickly acknowledge and connect my appreciation to teachers, and I want to do this through sharing an email that I received. I received copied on an email from a patron who's actually a community member in Walla Walla, and the email was this just very heartwarming story of a trip to McDonald's with her twins and a big double stroller trying to get it in the door, and seeing a sea of purple and white baseball uniforms who came over and opened the door for her. And she said it literally made her cry on the way home. The person was a single mom. And anyway, it was just a very heartwarming email from someone who is a community member in Walla Walla, acknowledging our kids and making the connection that kids do that through mentorship of the adults around them. So again, our kids go out and are a reflection of the phenomenal work that our teachers and coaches and the adults that are with our kids every day. It's through those great relationships and and mentoring that our students are so phenomenal. And I shared that one email that I got over the weekend. That's probably, I probably have received like 12 of those this year. So it's not one team from one school. This happened to be the baseball team from Pasco High School, the JV team, but it happens across our community and across other communities. So I remember a phrase about true character is kids doing the right thing even when no one's watching. You know, our kids do the right thing regardless of where they are, and that's a reflection of the great adults that they interact with every day. So I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Next, moving on to agenda item number 9, we have reports and discussion. We have a nutrition services update and community eligibility provision update from Ms. Kristen Blair.
So Ms. Blair is going to head to the podium. Mark's going to help her bring her presentation up. And I just wanted to frame this presentation for the board. Ms. Blair is going to provide some information. And then what we're going to be looking for from you as a board is any input or additional information that you would need to explore or have Kristen bring back to the board. We will at some point need to bring this back to the board for action, but certainly this is an opportunity to get input from you about what you might need moving forward to make a decision.
Okay, thank you. Board President Lehrman, members of the board, Superintendent Whitney, thank you for the invitation to present. Tonight's nutrition services update is an update on community eligibility provision and the paid lunch equity. Okay, so beginning with paid lunch equity, or excuse me, beginning with how about community eligibility provision? Community eligibility provision, or CEP, is a USDA designed program that allows schools with high percentages of free and reduced populations to serve meals to all students without collecting meal applications. Our participating CEP schools are Captain Gray, Chess, Curie, Emerson, Frost, Longfellow, Robinson, and Whittier Elementary, and then Ochoa and Stevens Middle Schools and New Horizons High School. So here's a look at the trends in participation, looking at before and after our large CEP implementation from last year. For this chart, all schools, or all CEP sites rather, regardless of the year that they began, are included under the CEP designation and highlighted in purple. So with breakfast participation, our traditional free and reduced schools stayed pretty even with our breakfast participation, but we did see a jump with our CEP schools last year compared to this year, going from 39% to 43% participation. At lunch, the participation is similar. Our traditional free and reduced schools were pretty even, 51 and 52%, but we did see a nice jump at participation at our CEP schools from 82% to 89%. Now, CEP status is approved for a 4-year cycle, so all current CEP schools may keep going for another 3 years without renewal. Emerson and Stevens, our original pilot schools from 2015-16, I included them last year in the application just so everybody is on the same 4-year cycle. Now, these schools were selected to participate in CEP because they met our criteria of having meals being reimbursed at 100%. And maximum reimbursement is achieved when a school's identified student percentage, or ISP, is at least 62.5%. And just to review, the ISP, or identified student percentage, that's the category of students that are automatically eligible for meal benefits, meaning they receive some type of food benefits, or they might be homeless, migrant, fostered, or runaway. Household income is the other category and means of determining meal eligibility. So currently, the mean identified student percentage at our traditional free and reduced schools is only 28.72%, so significantly below where we would achieve maximum reimbursement.
As such, we do not recommend adding any CEP schools for next school year. But I do want to add that even though we're not recommending adding any CEP schools, any household that is eligible to receive food benefits will do so, provided they apply and are eligible, of course. In August, we mail applications to all households in the district, plus we pay for an online application service for the benefit of our families. Okay. So the second topic this evening is meal pricing for next year. Now, each spring, the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, sets the minimum average lunch price for the following school year. And they do so by taking the free reimbursement rate minus the paid reimbursement rate, and they come up with a figure. This year, our free reimbursement is $3.18. The full pay or paid reimbursement is 32 cents, which is a difference of $2.86. The $2.86, that is what the minimum average price has to be for next year. The process to develop and determine compliance with this minimum average price is called the paid lunch equity. And districts calculate what their current average lunch price is, and then if an increase is warranted, they may decide individually how to increase prices. So the paid lunch equity establishes paid rates only. It does not have any impact, or it is not, I guess you would say it's completely independent of free and reduced volume of a district. Doesn't matter if a district is 5% free and reduced or 95% free and reduced, the same USDA formula applies. The only time a district would not have to complete a paid lunch equity is if they were 100% free and reduced, 100% free. Okay, so calculating this. Districts determine their weighted average lunch price by using the total paid lunches from October, and it's per each price category. We happen to have two price categories, elementary and secondary. Now, Pasco's school district is weighted with 64% of our paid lunches coming from elementary and 36% coming from secondary. And this was the exact split last year as well. So our current weighted average price is $2.78, which is well below the minimum that's required for next year. And the result of that is the necessity to increase prices going forward. Now, districts have differing goals and strategies on how to meet the paid lunch equity compliance. Some districts adopt large increases less often. It's common to see 25 cents, 50 cents at a time. And then what they are over the minimum, that carries them forward for a few years. So they do not have to raise prices each year. Other districts look at it that they will contribute funds to the Nutrition Services Department, so you don't have to see the increase. Our goal and strategy has been to meet the paid lunch equity by adopting the lowest price each year while keeping nutrition services self-funded. Okay. So to achieve compliance, we recommend the following meal price increases for 2017-2018. Elementary breakfast, $1.40, secondary breakfast, $1.65, elementary lunch, $2.75, and secondary lunch, $3.05. This combination puts our weighted average at $2.86, which is exactly compliant with the USDA minimum. We also recommend this combination as it distributes the increase to both secondary and elementary.
Do I understand right that the breakfast price has no impact on the weighted average that you're talking about? So it's just strictly lunch prices. We could set the breakfast prices wherever in order to meet the requirement.
Correct. Strictly for the paid lunch equity, it's only paid lunches. Yes. Okay, so with that recommendation, here's an illustration of what the meal prices in the area would look like next year. We'd be the same with most districts at elementary lunch, while we would be slightly higher at secondary lunch. We remain tied for the lowest at elementary breakfast, and we would still be the lowest at secondary breakfast. And going off what you just said, Mr. Lehrman, breakfast does not affect the paid lunch equity, but we have not asked for an increase in breakfast since 2013-14. Now, the pattern of lunch price increase since 13-14 has been generally 10 cents per year. The only exceptions were into 15-16, an increase was not necessary. And then last year, the split was a little bit different, 5 cents at elementary and 15 cents at secondary. So our recommendation is not the only scenario available to achieve paid lunch equity compliance. Option number 1 distributes the price increase a little differently. It keeps it solely at elementary. With that combination, no increase at secondary, but an increase at elementary. Our paid lunch equity would be slightly above where it needs to be. That penny difference would transfer into the next year. Within the area, we would be highest at elementary, but we would be even with everybody else at secondary lunch. The next two options are examples of how some districts meet their paid lunch equity. So for instance, using option 2, the scenario would be we could still increase elementary lunch to $2.75, but we would not increase secondary lunch. It would maintain at $3. This would keep us even with most districts at elementary lunch, and we would be even at secondary lunch with everybody else in the area. However, our paid lunch equity would be slightly below, it's not written here, but it would be $2.84. So that is not yet compliant. So to be in compliance, the district would have to contribute non-federal funds to the Nutrition Services Department. Option 3 is the same, it's the same formula. This is just looking at if we were to not raise or increase prices at either elementary or secondary. Same scenario, our paid lunch equity would only be $2.78, so we have a significant jump to make up. The district would have to contribute $41,000 in non-federal funds. And let me explain also the caveat with the $2.85. I understand that's different than the $2.86 I mentioned before. There is a loophole, I guess, that USDA allows you to round down to the nearest 5 cents.
So did you say it'd be $2.78 without the district's $41,000 contribution?
Correct, yes. Okay, so consideration of contributing non-federal funds is new. We haven't looked at that before, as it's been the expectation that nutrition services remain a self-funded and revenue-neutral department. However, it is an option that is available for you to consider. So as from Michelle's intro, we are asking for direction from the board in preparation for bringing this back to a future board meeting for approval. I'm happy to go over anything else or answer questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Questions or comments from the board for Ms. Blair?
I've got a question on the breakfast. Do many of our students participate in breakfast that pay for breakfast?
No, not many. Of the group that participates, 8% are paid students.
Okay. So I see we're jumping 15 cents at breakfast versus 10 for elementary lunch and 5, I think, for secondary lunch.
True.
Is breakfast more expensive?
We have.
Is there a bigger jump in breakfast cost versus?
Yes, and with the recent addition of the requirement of having students that they must take fruit at breakfast, it's led to increased cost. Yes, that's true. Now, we've kept prices low for a number of years on purpose. We want kids that maybe are not eating at home to eat breakfast with us, have a full stomach, ready to learn. But we are at the point where that wasn't covering our expenses.
Is there any reimbursement for breakfast?
Yes. Mhm.
Federal reimbursement?
Yes.
Are free and reduced lunches, are they fully reimbursed by the federal and state governments, or are the paid some of the paid carry some of the lack?
Both free and reduced are reimbursed. They're actually reimbursed at the same rate, or it gets to the same rate, I should say. The 40-cent that reduced students pay ends to the same total of $3.18 that we get for free reimbursement. We get a tiny amount of reimbursement for a paid lunch, 32 cents. So it's a question of, the paid lunches are not subsidizing us, I shouldn't say that. But the point that USDA put with implementing this has only been since 12-13 that they require this paid lunch equity. The reason they did that is that a lot of districts were charging very little for their paid meals. So they are making the concerted effort or forcing us, I suppose, to be able to cover costs by charging what they determine is appropriate.
So if we go to that slide, the $3.18 that is the free reimbursement rate, that covers, $3.18 covers a lunch, no matter whether it's free or paid. Is that what you're saying? $3.18 covers everything. We're not losing money there.
We are not, no.
And when we average $2.86 across the district, we get 32-cent reimbursement for paid lunches. $2.86, we get an additional 32 cents from the government, which equals $3.18, and we're not losing money on paid lunches either.
We are not losing, no.
Could you estimate, I won't hold you to these numbers, on a typical day, the numbers are 17,000 students that have free and reduced lunch at elementary and secondary level, paid, and then we would assume the rest brought their lunch or go out to eat if they're in high school. Do you just off the top of your head? I mean, I won't hold you to it, but something roughly.
I can give you a little description of that. I don't have it broken down to exactly what the specific numbers are. This year, our average daily participation at lunch is 11,500. Our paid participation within that number is 17%. So if you're fast, you can figure that out. I can't. Breakfast, we are looking at about 4,500 participation per day.
Okay, so about 2,000. So that would be the number of people that are paying. I'll be honest, the cost is expensive to pay. I mean, I have 4 children, and I mean that adds up. I can make their lunch way cheaper than that. So, but sure. I mean, it's expensive to buy the lunch if you're paying. Do we have any control over the reduced cost lunch?
No.
Or is that set?
No, we have control in that we may charge less than 40 cents, but we may not charge more than 40.
Okay, because I know that's pretty generous too. I mean, anyways, okay. My last question. Sure. Last year, I know one thing we talked about was the family income report, and there was some concern that there may be some resistance to people filling that out at the schools was that an issue? It was. Did we?
No, I'm sorry. I was just acknowledging your question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And falling under, we were required 90%, some percentage of everyone at that school had to fill that out. And was that an issue? Do we see an issue going forward when we renew the cycle? And
okay, so The family income survey is what students at CEP schools must, or we ask that households turn in a family income survey instead of the free and reduced application at CEP sites. So yes, to your question, it has not been an issue of receiving enough back. We are upwards of 95% of all our CEP schools, and we are actually still getting more, so very high. So it was not an issue.
That's great.
Yes, very good.
And I think the other issue we brought up was more of a legislative issue. We were trying to decide if we could combine some of these forms and use them for multiple
Right.
programs and not have to fill out so many forms. Any progress on that? Do you remember that, Mr. Christensen?
I do remember that.
Is there any chance? I mean, we're messing with the government. This is probably not going to happen, but any ray of light?
So nothing's happened that I'm aware of. This has not hit our radar as far as anything legislative this go around. I think WASDA does have a position on that, but there's never any legislation around that. So, short answer, no.
So the next year's USDA average is 286.
Yes.
What was this current school's year's USDA average?
278.
Okay, so that's the need for that 8 cents increase on average across the district for next year is strictly all due to nothing programmatically we're doing, it's just due to the USDA average, which is the difference between paid lunch and reimbursed free lunch.
Correct. It's a nationwide requirement, and it has to do with the consumer price index and also a few more figures that I'm not totally familiar. But they do have a formula on how they get there, and I haven't seen the reimbursement for this year yet, so I'm not sure where it will go.
8 cents this year, and I think I heard you say in your presentation that it averages around, it's nominally 10 cents a year.
Roughly, yes.
In the past couple of years. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm assuming, because if it's just a government thing, then we should have extra money in our nutrition services. If it's not, I'm assuming this reflects inflation and everything else. So we actually need those funds in order to break even with the lunches currently in the way they are. Is that true?
Yeah, totally correct.
Okay.
So 318 and 32 cents, that's what the government reimburses, regardless of what we serve for lunch.
As long as we are compliant with our lunches, that's
Right,
what they give us. But yes, that is what we get.
So if we buy more economically or whatever, then we can do better than that. But we still end up charging. We have to charge that much anyway. Is that?
Correct. We don't have the option to charge less just because we want to.
If we have some farmer that donates milk or something like that, we can't charge less because we get donated milk, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Are there any questions? So I think what we'll do is we'll take questions or comments to the board from the public here, and then we'll address each of these issues separately, kind of have a discussion as a board and determine if we would like them to bring back the, what do we call it, community eligibility program as an expansion, or go with the recommendation of the district at a future meeting. And also we have to take action on how to fund the difference in the district's weighted average and the federal reimbursement requirement. So questions or comments from the audience to the board on this issue? All right, next we'll have a discussion between the board. Let's start off with community eligibility program and thoughts from the board on whether we want to stick with the schools we have or ask the district to bring a recommendation to expand. The recommendation from the district is that we stick with the schools we have. Just want board discussion on that.
I think we should stick with the schools that we have currently.
To me, it sounds like if a school was eligible, we would be considering it, but the school's not eligible, so we're not considering it.
There are additional schools that would be eligible. I think what she was showing is that on average, the schools aren't, but there may be additional schools. Is that right, Ms. Blair? We do have additional schools that would be eligible if we would like to expand it.
On the second slide.
So to answer your question, if we have any technically eligible schools for community eligibility provision, yes, Pasco High is technically eligible. They have the minimum qualification for CEP is a 40% identified student percentage.
So why was the recommendation not to do that? Versus if they're eligible, we'll get reimbursed for all of that. Is it the fear of not getting reimbursed, or the workload, or what's?
So the caveat there is that with a 44% identified student percentage, we will receive full reimbursement at 70% of the meals served, but then we will receive a fraction of reimbursement for 30% of the meals served. So that would be the difference of the $3.18 and the 32 cents. So that would be extremely difficult to, well, actually, we wouldn't. We would not cover our expenses with a school like that. The other schools, all of those listed here, they are all at 100% reimbursement. What I should add is USDA says it's fully funded. Well, technically, it's funded because we get 32 cents, but that does not cover expenses at 30%.
So there's two levels of qualification essentially, like you said, the 40% and the 62.5 to get 100% coverage versus 70% coverage.
Correct. The USDA standard is 40%. Our standard has been 100%. I'm sorry, 62.5, which is 100%.
Do you still have, I think you gave us spreadsheets in the past on approximate costs that it would cost the district to implement it at schools. Do you have a live spreadsheet of that you could just send to us? No?
I do not. I can make one, but I don't have it, no.
So the difference, I mean, those who qualify still get free and reduced lunch, so.
Yes, any household, any student in the district that qualifies for free and reduced meal benefits receive those, yes.
It's just that those who now qualify, or those who don't qualify now don't get a free lunch if they're not part of the CEP program, so. I think that's reasonable, that we just keep it where it is and we maintain these that we have as CEP schools.
Did we think there is paperwork benefits and it's good to continue the program at the schools that we do have it at?
Oh, definitely.
Efficiencies, I should say.
In addition to the increase in participation, our office is able to handle the influx of the traditional free and reduced school meal applications much faster. It is a day. At our rush, it could be a couple days, but before it was up to 10 days. So we can process those quite efficiently now because it's much less volume.
Well, I agree with Steve. I think we should keep it as it is because it works and it comes out financially great, and the kids that need it most are getting it.
Okay, sounds like the majority of the board agrees that we should keep it as is. I think with the caveat that you'll continue to watch it with your staff, and if you think at any time it should be expanded or reduced in any way, bring it to the board again and we'll reassess.
I will. It is assessed once a year, April 1st, so nothing will change until next April 1st, but we monitor it quite closely because it's beneficial when the schools qualify, so certainly.
Thank you. All right, next, so no additional action from the district on bringing anything to us at this time. Next, we'll talk about the way that we would like to have the difference between Pasco's weighted average lunch price and the federal reimbursed lunch price taken care of. Historically, in the past, we've passed this on to the consumer. The district's recommendation is on page, I'm not sure what page it's on here. Can we pull it up
15. Or, well, it's
15 of the PDF file.
15 on the PDF file.
one
um,
before.
the previous.
So it's 160, or 140 for breakfast for elementary and 275 for lunch.
Right.
And the secondary is 165 for breakfast and 305 for lunch. 305 seems like an odd amount to me, but
So a 10-cent rise in elementary school lunch and a 5-cent rise in secondary lunch. We'd stick with the district's past practice of not contributing other funds towards meeting this federal requirement. On another page, a couple pages forward, there are several additional options for the board to consider. Discussion from the board on which options you like going forward.
I just want to say, if we're going to put more money into it, I'd like to just see that go to having better quality food and options than to keep the rate down. So I think that's an issue I think we could address.
I feel like I like keeping it financially. My brain's not working either, so solvent. You know, that we're not
Self-funded.
self-funded. That's the one I'm looking for. I just think we should keep it self-funded. I think we should go ahead with the increases. Parents always have the option of making up lunches for their kids if those prices are too high. And I know that might not be the case in every situation where it's really difficult, but anyway, I just think that's what we've done in the past. I think it's financially responsible, and I believe that's the best option. I believe if we start contributing, I think we're setting a precedence in lots of other areas that probably isn't the best precedent. $6,000 isn't a lot to our district, but
$6,000 today is
yes,
more tomorrow.
yes.
I agree. I think these increases look reasonable. And just a question: do people have to bring their money to school? Can they pay online? Is there a way? Okay, I haven't had a kid in school for a while, so. And can they pay with credit card? Is it a e-check? What is it? Either one?
So you can, I'm doing a little, this is
Oh,
a
sorry,
commercial
yeah, maybe
from
this is
Superintendent
not-
Whitney. There's actually a spot on the Pasco School District app where you can also go in and pay for school lunches.
Venmo?
You don't have it, get it.
PayPal, was it?
Yeah, and you can pay with.
Parents in the district, there is an online way, both through the app, but also I get email reminders if my students' lunch accounts balance are low. I can pay online, I can add as much as I want, or have it have a reoccurring amount. I use it mostly as backup. My kids mostly make their own lunches, but if I need to, I can have money in their account. I can put it on in the morning, and usually by lunchtime, it's available for them.
It's called My School Bucks.
I'm just curious, so if you use a credit card, typically there's a processing fee. Do we,
If there is a processing fee, it hasn't been reflected on my
Okay.
purchasing side.
so the district is picking it up if there is. So I'm just curious, can we pay with a credit card? Can parents pay with a credit card, and is that? Or whatever it is. If there's, typically cards have a processing fee, and is that figured into our lunch prices? Not to get into the weeds.
So the company does not charge us a processing fee. We pay for the service an upfront amount a year. But no, they do not charge us, and they do not charge the parents.
Wow, good for them, I think.
Well, they pay, yeah, but you pay it up front for the service.
Right,
That
but hopefully
takes
it's a
care of the
reasonable
processing fee.
fee.
Students have any input on any of these recommendations on lunch prices?
I think that the price recommendation is shown seems pretty reasonable to me. I mean, it seems that with the PLE that we're in a position where it needs to be raised, and if we're not gonna be able to like pull a lot of funds toward that necessarily, then I think the raise there is a good option.
All right. Do we have any community input or questions for the board on the 2017-18 price recommendations for school lunch and breakfast? Okay, we'll bring this back to the next board meeting as an action item with the recommendation on this page right here from the district for the board to take action on.
Mr. Lerman, since this is kind of the one time of the year we talk about food, I just want to make one comment that as far as the breakfast, Ms. Blair, I know we're kind of under we have to follow the rules, but the whole have to take a food, and if you can take it and waste it, if there's anything we can do or anyone that can figure out a way to fight that, it's such a waste. And I was just reading recently about how many hundreds of millions of people around the world are at risk of starvation right now. And in our country, it's a frustration that our government works that inefficiently, but I know our hands are tied on that, but it's hugely frustrating when your kids realize that and you try to have a global perspective. And then the other thing that I've heard from some people is some kids, if their lunch isn't there, they're forced to buy a lunch, even though they didn't want to, or is that some sort of a thing? Because and then there's a cost shows up on a card that they don't have or have never used, and then they.
No. We provide meals to students if they don't have any money. We have a charging limit, and if a student has exceeded their charging limit, we provide either a cheese sandwich, sometimes cheese and crackers. The elementary kids seem to like that better. They can have unlimited fruits and vegetables and a milk. So this is what we're just providing kids that don't have any money. And no, they're not charged for that.
And that is, anyway, that one's hard. I don't know if you can fix the system because it's a frustration to me every year because my children would rather have hot lunch, but I am cheap because we operate fiscally responsibly. So they take their own lunches to school. Well, sometimes they'll take a lunch to school, but they'd rather have hot lunch. So then they go charge it. So getting the schools to not charge my children, let them charge lunches so that they eat what they have in their backpack, or if they forget it, they get their cheese sandwich because then they remember the next day. So, I might be a little bit of a hard-nosed parent, but that one is a frustration and a fight I have every single solitary year. So wish we could fix that one because I don't think they should be allowed to charge without the parents' permission.
Yes, Ms. Phillips put it much more eloquently than I did, but that was my concern because it's happened to my kids too. So please don't charge my kids.
And sometimes I walk into the school and I tell the teacher, they will charge like the first 5 things. The thing is I make my kids work it off. So I won't even pay off the debt until they do enough work to earn the money themselves, and then they take it in a little envelope and they get it so they understand the value of a $3 meal. So anyway, but that's a hard thing because it's frustrating that children can charge these things without parents' permission.
Sorry, am I?
No, I'm raising responsible kids, I hope.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. We'll look forward to taking action on that item next board meeting. Next, we have agenda item number 9B. We have the Early Learning Center naming process. Mr. Eric Bowles.
So while Eric makes his way up to the podium, I just wanted to put some kind of as parameters around this particular presentation as well. So what Mr. Bowles is presenting to you tonight is where we are in the Early Learning Center naming process, which aligns very closely with how schools have been named in the past in Pasco School District. So one of the things that we've focused on as a superintendent and a board and as a district is there's always room for us to look at processes and procedures and practices differently. And so Mr. Bowles is going to provide you an update, and then from the board, what we're looking for is, we're ready to bring you free to bring this back, or hey, we would like you to explore some additional options or layers in the naming process, etc. So that's kind of what we're looking for tonight.
So good evening, President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Like Superintendent Whitney shared, I'm here to just navigate you through the Early Learning Center process. And before I get started, I'd like to recognize Christy Dawkin, who's led the process, as well as any of the committee members who may be in the audience this evening. Go ahead, stand up and let us recognize you for your work on this. Or don't. Yeah. Okay, they're not standing, but we can recognize them anyway. So the purpose was to involve community members and staff in the process of recommending potential names for the Early Learning Center to the board. And the background consistent with procedure 9250. You see the criteria here. Honoring contributions of individuals. Names should be known to and significant to Pasco. Not conflict with the names of other schools in the area. And names of living persons should be avoided unless circumstances warrant. So the process started with media releases, setup of a PSD email account to gather input, to accept nominations from the public, and received roughly 40 different names from the community, and I believe you have those names in your packet. So continuing with the process, sought membership from the Citizens Naming Committee, and the committee met on 2 occasions on December 1st and January 5th. The process looked like this. We had 5 individuals indicate an interest in participating. They participated. So the community group, along with Ms. Dawkin, developed some interest in terms of trying to winnow down to a manageable number of names put forward, inclusive of community demographics, a positive connotation, and easily remembered or spoken by young children. So during the 2 meetings, a number of activities transpired, including reviewing the criteria and media releases, researching potential nicknames, abbreviations, and/or conflicts that could not be associated with the names, and applied a criteria and prioritized the nomination using a variety of strategies. And the committee brought forth the 4 recommendations you see here on the slide. Thank you.
So I just wanted to also call the board members' attention. You have a document in front of you that looks like this. It has all of the names that were provided to the committee, and it also has a TOS 1 and TOS 2, and a rationale for removing names, should the board be interested in all the names that were provided and why they were removed from consideration.
Is TOS 1, does TOS 1 and TOS 2 refer to the 2 different subcommittees?
I believe it was just 2 iterations to winnow the names down to a manageable few.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Any questions or comments from the board on the naming process?
I noticed you didn't accept any names, or they didn't accept any names outside of, unless they had some significance in Pasco. There's been lots of names in the schools that had no significance directly to Pasco. I just was wondering if there was a reason behind that, or if it was just another way to narrow down the focus. Does anybody know that one?
Well, and my understanding is, and I may be incorrect, so feel free to correct me, but I believe that's consistent with the procedure that we're charged to follow.
Oh, we gave you that procedure to follow?
Look here.
Okay. Got it.
Yes.
So these come right out of our board policy.
Out of procedure 9250, yes.
I have to say, thank you. That has got to be one of the most difficult jobs, because the name that building ends up with will be the name that it has probably for a long time. Yeah, and I mean, there's lots of good names here, and I'm glad it's you narrowing it down, not me. And are we gonna get a recommendation for a final name, or is that gonna be up to us?
That's us. I think the first 4 names on this are the recommendations. We'll have to vote and take action as a board if we decide to support this process, and we'll bring this back as action at a later time if if there's board members that would like to recommend a different process, that's what this discussion's about.
I'm just a little curious about, because I don't remember passing that policy. Is that one that was passed before us? Okay, so if it's been in there a long time, then how come we have Franklin, Marie Curie, and do you know why?
It's just saying that it's significant to the residents of Pasco. I think we had the committee, Ms. Holmberg brought those names to us at one point, and the committee that worked on that decided that those were scientists that were significant to Pasco.
Oh,
Following
They're
the STEM
nuclear,
theme.
You know, Hanford. So-
finding a early learning specific educator outside of Pasco who contributed significantly to early learning to make it very specific to preschool, pre-K education. You're not gonna believe this, but there's a lot more popular scientists than early learning educators.
you're kidding.
So,
Anyway, I think you came up with great names, by the way. I have no complaint over them, but I might have some issues over board policy that I don't have anything to do with. But anyway, these are great names. I like several of them. This is the other thing too, how I'm trying to pronounce some of these names in English as well as Spanish, and I'm kind of looking at which ones would be the best, because I'm not very good at Spanish. My husband only speaks Spanish to our children, so I hear it a lot every day, but I'm not very good. But needless to say, I can pronounce better than some. Anyway, Alegria, Alitas, and Explorando, but I can see people pronouncing it Allegria, Alitas, and Explorando. Anyway, so how are we going to try to pronounce these properly? Is there one that's easier to pronounce? Did they come up with a recommendation of one specific one? I mean, obviously the Betty Hall we can all pronounce, or I guess not all, but I can pronounce better. Anyway, is there a recommendation on there that that group came up with, or yeah, do you just want us to do it? Okay.
just out of curiosity, were these names submitted? I guess if I read the whole thing, was there any that the group themselves just came up with and said, hey, let's throw this one in the mix? Do you know, Mr. Bowles? I kind of like the theme, you know, Mr. Rogers or Sesame Street or
Seuss Early Learning
Dr.
Center.
Seuss. Yeah, I mean, these are known to kids, right? And they're kind of fun, but I don't know. This is a challenge.
But they're following our board policy.
I know. Well, I mean, who is? Maybe it's just my kids, but those little Tickle Me Elmo things that they got years ago. We could call it Elmo Early Learning Center, right?
So the
Or
process
Cookie
for
Monster Early Learning Center.
the suggestion process has been closed though? Or could somebody just come up with a new suggestion?
Well, the board would have to. It's closed, yes, unless we reopened it and went with a different process. But we appreciate the work that this group has done, I think. Does that answer the question?
Fred.
No more Fred Rogers then?
I think you'd have to call it Mr. Rogers.
Are the four final recommendations, did those come from the community or any of those names that came up during the 5 committee members meeting? Which ones, how many of them came from the community during the official submittal process? Of those 4, did anybody from the committee submit those during the committee work? Yes. And we don't know how many of them? All of them came just from the committee, not from the community members' submittals?
During the process where we were eliminating one, you eliminate one because, well, this one wasn't specific to early learning. We eliminated another because we thought, well, it's a well-known name, but it's not really specific to Pasco. We were trying to abide by the rules set out that it should be specific to Pasco and significant to Pasco and also to early learning. So they were narrow parameters.
So all 4 of these came from the 5 people whose names are up there? I see heads shaking yes and no. Can we get an answer to that?
So,
I'll speak to one, which is Alegria. That came from a lunch conversation at a school.
But it was brought to the table by one of the 5 people whose name's on there, or was it submitted electronically through the?
It was not submitted. It came from
Okay.
staff.
So this process, the process of naming is fraught with peril. I was talking to someone before the meeting, and if you've paid attention to local districts, this has been an issue that's been in the news. If you name it after someone that's living and they turn out to not be a great person, that's a problem. If you, there's sometimes heated discussions about some of these schools and stuff, so this is something I was not looking forward to at all. I like Miss Phillips, tried to so I know how to pronounce all these names, but in speaking with my wife, okay, how would you pronounce this? And that became a problem. So alegria is I like that. It's, if you pronounce it correctly, joy, happiness, that's lovely. But most people probably wouldn't pronounce it that way. And so that's kind of problematic. Same with explorando, that's going to be, I think, problematic. The difficulty in commenting on these is whoever came up with it's going to be offended, or it's just so easy to be offended, or if you don't like the Spanish names, are you being offensive to the Spanish language? If you don't like Betty Hall, are we saying we don't like her? I mean, it's just it's easy to take offense during this type of a process. So,
Or even if you just named it Wings Early Learning Center.
so alitas, I think that's something that sounds good in Spanish or English. You can pronounce it however you want, and it comes out pretty close, and like the idea of the wings or whatever. Betty Hall, people would probably just call it Hall, and then that kind of doesn't sound as good. But this type of a process, I agree that the policy should probably be changed. I mean, it sounds like we haven't necessarily followed that exactly, and these providing themed rooms is great for young children. And the fact is, yeah, there's crazy people that were in early learning that came out with crazy ideas, and so it's hard. But some of those people that are familiar to kids, I think that would be great. It provides an easy setup of the building, recognizable. What's that?
like Elmo?
Well, I don't know about Sesame Street, but like Dr. Seuss would be, that type of a theme. I don't know if you'd want to call it the Dr. Seuss Early Learning Center, but having that type of a theme in a building for kids, we have that in my office. We have murals on the wall. It's enjoyable for kids and makes it a good experience, and easy is very kid friendly. So. That type of and we could still do that even with a different name. It doesn't have to be the name to have Dr. Seuss themed rooms or whatever, but this is not a fun thing I'd love to hear what the audience thinks, to be honest, because I just know what I think and what I talked to my wife about, and I was dying to know what the other board members thought about this, but.
So let's finish with the
that's
board
fine.
discussion and questions first. I like several of these names. What I'm a little concerned about is that we received 40 names from the community, told the community that a committee was going to discuss these names. And then, if I understand correctly, the committee came in and came up with 4 of their own names. And I'm just kind of concerned more with the process than, it's not that I don't think any of these names would work, just if we're going to solicit names from the community and say that there's going to be a committee that votes on those, we should do it that way. I think otherwise we should say we're going to just have a committee of however many people want to come in, and you can select the names at that time. That's my concern. Other comments from the board? Questions for Mr. Bowles?
I think it was hard for the committee because of the parameters that they felt like they were trying to follow. But looking back, I think we have, I think Dr. Seuss could be significant too, because there's hardly a child that doesn't have Dr. Seuss books in their home or exposed to them at their child care places or schools. So I would have been so fine with some of those. Anyway, I'm ready to choose from one of these, and if we feel like it needs to be one from the community, I'm perfectly willing to choose from one of the others. I think I like alitas as well, because I like the idea of wings. You can incorporate it into airplane wings or bug wings or butterfly wings, and I think you could fit some themed things around that. But I personally love the idea of Dr. Seuss Early Learning Center. So
Yeah, I think, Mr. Lerman, to your point, I think I don't think there's any reason why we can't change it, and actually, since there's so many committee members here, we could just ask them, what were some of the ones that if you didn't have such restrictive recommendations that you discussed and liked, then we can pull that back in. The policy is vague and is left open to interpretation anyway, so there was just maybe they felt boxed in, but there's no reason we can't open that up again. While still honoring their work, some of them are here, we can ask what they would have thought if they didn't feel tied down to that.
I guess I wasn't aware from this presentation that none of the 40 names submitted by the community made it into this final list, and I would ask, I don't know if the district can ask at this time if they would stand behind that process or not, and I don't want Mr. Bowles to answer it now, but I would like to know that before we go forward. Does anybody else have any concerns about the process? If the other 4 board members are fine with the process, then we'll continue on. But
I just don't want to hurt any of the feelings of those people that went to the work of doing this. That was a lot of work. There was effort. And so I have one of the committee members saying that it's fine. When we ask a committee to do something, we want to honor that work. And I feel like our parameters weren't very clear, and I feel like that's our fault. So something that we might be able to fix.
okay, thank you, Mr. Bowles. Questions or comments from the community?
I would like to make a comment. Years ago, I was commissioned by 4 different schools to paint the interior of the multi-purpose rooms, and I did themes from Disney and Schultz, Peanuts, and years later, I was told they had to all come down, all of it. And it was because I was infringing, doing copyright. We had to be so careful about that. And so, I like Elitas. Myself, I don't know that much Spanish, but I was going through here and I'm going like, okay, Allegra, who is Betty Hall?
Yeah.
And Explorando, I'm going like, okay, that must mean something about exploring. I don't know Spanish. So that's, in Elitas, my daughter's name is Alita. So, it's not spelled that way, but I knew that said Elitas.
I think that's a good point, that whatever we do, we have to be careful of copyright stuff. Dr. Seuss, I'm sure we could really get crossways with somebody, or Elmo. Mr. Rogers.
As far as the pronunciation, I think nobody's going to completely pronounce it the way that's supposed to be if you can't speak the language. So I know, like, Alegria, might not be pronounced correctly, but it's not so much how you pronounce it. It's like the meaning behind the whole, the purpose of why it was created, I think. And so no matter what name you pick up there, I think they all have the meanings behind it. The meanings behind them are significant. And I mean, is Dr. Seuss actually pronounced Dr. Seuss or Dr. Seuss? Dr. Seuss? Okay, so I don't know.
See, I like Alegria because I know Spanish and I just like that word. But I think as far as pronunciation goes, Elitas is probably the best. And Elitas, wings, we have alas, the, oh my goodness, what's that community called?
Lakeview.
Lakeview, yeah, they have their alas program there. And this would be, of these names, I would prefer Elitas. I agree, Betty Hall, doesn't mean much to me. So an explorando would be a little difficult. I think people would associate it with exploring, but explorando,
I think it's a really long word that could be pronounced really
Yeah.
incorrectly. So it's better to have like a short.
So do we have 3 board members who would like to have the district bring these 4 names forward? If you'd like the district to bring it forward at the next meeting, let me know. Dr. Richardson, are you satisfied with the process and like them to bring these 4 names forward?
No, I agree with you. I think there's no reason why we can't reapproach it. Personally, this isn't a huge rush. It's not going to open until January, and we're just talking about a name. So if we don't feel that it was an adequate process, we still honor what they've done, and they can still contribute. I'd love to hear some of their opinions on this, but I don't think there's any reason why we have to feel tied down because of a faulty process. So I agree with you that that's how I feel. I agree, though. I think Alitas is the best one. I think there are people that may be offended by that. You know, we live in a diverse community. Not everyone speaks Spanish. There'll be people, we have African American, Asian, Russian populations, and again, it's fraught with peril to come up with these types of names, and I'm sure there will be people offended that it's a Spanish language name when we live in a diverse community where English unites all cultures and communities, and so it's difficult. Like this woman said, I loved her comments, but they don't even know what Elitas means. People will just read that, and to her it's the name of her daughter, and I just think it's a challenge, So I'd love to hear from some of the community, Ms. Hall Lewis or some of the other 5 that were there, what their thoughts are.
And thank you for bringing up the copyright. I didn't even think about the copyright. That's a really good point. So something we might need to be careful of. We might even have to pay to use the name Dr. Seuss on it, or, I think Eric Carl was one of them, and anyway, Elmo, whatever. That might run into problems, so I appreciate that perspective.
Ms. Lankin, would you like him to bring these 4 names forward or come up with another process?
I'm really okay either way. I don't know why we can't just call it Wings Early Learning Center.
yeah, Wings or Alitas. Take your pick.
Yeah.
Want to speak Spanish, but I guess I would be curious, and I wouldn't want to put anybody on the spot, but did you feel constrained to limit yourself to this? I mean, sounds like these names all came from the group rather than community, and probably were inspired by things that you had read or seen or done that had been submitted. But I mean, if you felt like, gosh, we were driven to this place, then I would be willing to go and try it again. But on the other hand, I think with these 3, I think we'd land on one, and it would probably be Elitas, and we would move on. So.
I just have a comment on being one of the committee members. If you look carefully, Alegría, Alitas, and Explorando are all Latin cognates. And so they are across languages, Italian, French, Spanish. And so if you look at Alegría, there's also a very famous song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but we'll sing it.
We want you to sing it for us.
Relate to the world-classness of that word. Alitas is wings, and we're letting our kids just take off in this early learning center. For Betty Hall, she was a kindergarten teacher in our district who recently passed. And as for the family, it was just an honor to have them as a suggestion for a name and honoring the family. And then the last one, Explorando, that's exploring, as you probably know. And we want our kids to explore because we have a wonderful world of learning ahead of them. So that's just a little bit of the background. If you have any more questions, there are 3 of us here. We're happy to answer your questions.
That was great. Thank you very much. I like those explanations, and that's helpful. Yeah, Spanish is very helpful to learn Latin. Do we offer Latin in high school? Do we have any? That would be something we should offer because it's helpful in medical terms as well. It helped me in medical school. So that's true. There's lots of different meanings to the.
So one more thing, Tom, it's also a musical term. So when you say alegre in your musical notes, what does that mean?
Happily.
Or happy.
But it is very challenging, and I think another challenge that added to it was there weren't, as you can see, there weren't a ton of names contributed. So, our starting point didn't start with, just a plethora of names that were submitted from the community. So it was kind of building upon the great things that were submitted and the rationales that were submitted with them. If rationales were submitted, and then kind of working through a process with the committee at that point.
So being on several committees, past and currently, I appreciate what the committee has done. But our community is the one who passes bonds, and we need bonds to pass. And so I think that we need to listen to our community when it comes to bonds and when it comes to naming the buildings that we're asking them to pay for. So I think that we should be mindful of the community's input into this.
And that's an eloquent way to say what I was thinking. If I was to say which of these names I like Wings, I like Elitas. It's just the process that we told the community, you submit these names, and we're putting together a committee that will select from these names, but then the committee didn't choose any of them. Maybe none of them were adequate, that's fine. But I would think we might go out and re-solicit names from the community, or we would say, we're putting together a community that will either come up with their own names or possibly, select from the nominated names. But I appreciate what you said there, and that's kind of the thought path I was going down.
So there was quite like a plethora of names that were generated, especially like by the community, but a lot of those that especially were presented by the community did not make the parameters. So my question is, were the community that were suggesting the names aware of the parameters for the name selection?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that was part of the, it was listed relations advertisement, I guess.
Some of the names looked like they didn't really read
What? Yeah.
Maybe they read it in English and they spoke Spanish. That can be a confusing thing. And I think, this is a challenge that we face. Anybody who sits on a committee gets more information. It's easy when you're submitting names, you submit a name and you think hopefully you think it's a good name, that's why you submit it. But when you're there in a committee, you're discussing it with people, you have different ideas, and I don't think there's anything wrong with going with what our committee narrowed it down to, even though it wasn't submitted maybe by somebody from the community. I don't think there's anything wrong in doing that necessarily. I think maybe the thing we should really consider is, are these names, when it comes to pronunciation, and I agree, these are Latin-based names, Latin root words, so maybe we should know them. But we want something that people can pronounce, something that's meaningful to those who are using that facility, and so we've spent a lot of time on this, and I'm not sure how much longer we're going to spend on this, but it's a challenge. It's going to be there for a long time, hopefully, so maybe we better get it right.
So Mr. Christensen's fine bringing these 4 names, it sounds like. Ms. Phillips, would you like to bring these 4 names forward to vote?
I'm fine bringing these 4 names forward. I do want to set a precedence for future ones to make sure it's a very clear process, and that, and I think allowing them to realize, we're considering all these names, and ultimately it's the decision of the committee to bring them forward, because I want to honor the work of the committee, and I want to honor the community both, and I think we can do that with these 4 names. So I'm fine with one of these 4.
So Ms. Phillips, we have two board members in this informal poll that would like to do another process, 2 members that would like to bring the names forward. Which way are you leaning at this time?
I said bring the names forward. I mean, these are fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Mr. Lerman, too. I think that my concern wasn't so much that none of the community suggestions made it on. It was just that did we tie the hands of our committee. But looking through the list, and I reviewed it before the board meeting, I honestly don't think there may be other ones that fit. And they're members of our community, so it's not like this was an outside agency that came in and we let them take over our process. These are members of the community. So, they are community members. So they looked at all the names, and if Alitas was the one that I felt would work too, and I'm okay with that. I'm more concerned about if we are going forward, we should probably change that policy to not restrict, so much, especially when it doesn't seem like that's exactly how we followed in the last naming process.
Okay, we'll put that on our list of policies to look at. Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Any additional comments from the community before we wrap this conversation up?
Can we just vote on one of the four now so we don't have to bring it back?
We'll bring it back to the next meeting with a brief write-up and a translation on each of them as to, what they are.
To do that, or we want to do
Yes, we'll bring it back as an action item at the next meeting.
Change your mind.
I get so frustrated with some of the redundancies, so thanks.
All
Sorry.
right.
Is that too vocal?
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Next, we have the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, we have an action item. Next, we have agenda item number 10, action items. Ms. Suzanne Hall, approval of curriculum adoption recommendations for art, Spanish, and PE. We received a presentation on this at the last board meeting, the first reading. So board members have been briefed and have the information I believe they need. The objective of this is to obtain board approval of the curriculum recommendations for art, Spanish, and PE, and an overview of the process that the committee followed, and the recommendation from the Instructional Materials Committee was provided at the April 11th, 2017 board meeting. Any questions for Ms. Hall or comments from the board on that presentation or this action item? All right. Any questions or comments from the community on this action item? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the art, Spanish, and PE curriculum adoption as presented.
Second it.
There's a motion and a second to approve the art, Spanish, and PE curriculum adoption as presented. Any additional board discussion? Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 There was a motion carries to approve the art, Spanish, and PE curriculum adoption as presented. Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have agenda item number 11, which is a consent agenda. We have personnel warrant approval, school improvement plans for 2016-17, second reading of the district policy 2410, high school graduation requirements, overnight student travel for the Chiawana High School DECA every 15 minutes shift into safety program preparation in Benton County morgue field trip. We have the same DECA New Horizons High School every 15 minutes shift into safety program preparation in Benton County morgue field trip. We have out-of-state overnight student travel for the Chiawana High School speech and debate team to the national tournament in Birmingham, Alabama. Overnight student travel for the Delta High School National History Day team to the state competition in Auburn, Washington. Overnight student travel for the Chiawana High School Future Farmers of America to the state convention and career and leadership development events in Pullman, Washington. Out-of-state overnight student travel for the Pasco High School Future Farmers of America to the state convention and career leadership development events in Pullman, Washington, and University of Idaho tour in Moscow, Idaho. Overnight student travel for the New High School Future Farmers of America, New Horizons High School Future Farmers of America to the state convention and career and leadership development events in Pullman, Washington. Pasco High School number 3 change order number 7. And we have an approval letter to the legislators regarding state assessments linked to graduation requirements. That was received later this afternoon, and I believe Ms. Thornton provided a copy of that to each of you prior to the board meeting. Discussion on the consent agenda?
So let me just tell you, the letter is, we want to send it to our representatives and senators. There is a bill that has gone through both houses. It's back now in the Senate, and the Senate doesn't want to take action on this. However, it sounds like they are willing to consider the biology part of it. So we wanted to send them a note specifically to ask them to reconsider that. So that's why this letter, it is one of our positions to de-link these end of course exams from the graduation requirement, but because this is where it is in the process, and we want to give them a little cover and a little emphasis to move this forward. So that's why we put this letter together.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Smith, a motion and a second. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Agenda item number 12, future agenda items.
So on May 9th, we will be having a board meeting with a couple of special recognitions, one for school nurses and one to the Columbia Center Rotary. We are also going to be having a study session where we continue the in-depth study process that's new that we've started. This one is focused on community facilities usage. We will have a stakeholder input. Our secondary principals will be prepared to talk about their perspective in terms of this policy. We'll also be prepared to bring a proposed survey to do to send out to users. So that'll be kind of the second in a series of studying that policy. During the presentation or during the board meeting, we'll focus on another layer of curriculum adoption recommendations and an update on our early learning continuum. I also just wanted to call the board's attention to I'll just, for brevity here, I'll skip the May 23rd, but I do want to get out in front of the board a request for a special meeting on June 6th, which is a Tuesday, but it's an off typical Tuesday. The purpose would be to have an MGT board community builders group combined meeting. At this point in the process, it would just be of real benefit for the board to meet collaboratively with the community builders group. So if you could tentatively mark your calendar for that, we're requesting, it will be a study session format starting at, I'm thinking that would start at 4:30, but we'd get you some details. So if you can just tentatively block that out, that would be great. We are requesting an executive session tonight under 4230 110(1)G personnel. We're expecting it to take 15 minutes. No action. We're requesting no action.
Thank you for attending this evening. I'd also like to thank the members of the community that did serve on the naming, on the preschool center naming committee. Thank you for your work. Thank you for staying with the board through that discussion and through this meeting. And we will recess into executive session.